And we're back on Second Street talking about how Canada responds to the Trump tariffs. Candice, I want to pick up on this idea that you floated before the commercial break, and that is offering up generous severance packages to federal employees so that we can reduce the size of the federal government. I certainly agree with you. I think we could do with a much smaller federal government. How do you avoid a situation where we're cutting severance checks to uh, positions where we actually need those people? How do you make sure that you have the right balance so that we're cutting the fat, but for the actual positions that we need as a country, that those people are remaining?
Well, you could go back and just try to get back to 2015 level staffing in terms of the
Mm-hmm.
federal government. I think it should be offered to all government employees. I think that if there's a single employee in the country who works for the government and would rather take the money and leave, we should let them go. We should let them go do something more productive with their time. We should send the message through the culture that if you want to have like a great life and be successful, you ought to do it in the private sector. You should go and start a business. You should go and use your creative entrepreneurial ideas, be innovative, challenging. That's how we're going to get real growth. We have to have a cultural shift. And I think for too many people, the idea of working for the government is like a great fallback. It's comfortable. The hours are predictable and often short. You know that you're going to get a big fat pension at the end of your career. And oftentimes you can even retire early. That's not the reality for people in the market. Look, I've started many companies, and for most of my life, most of my career, I've worked for myself. I had 4 kids. And guess what? When you work for yourself, you don't really get a maternity leave. You have to find people to do the job. And oftentimes you're the one that does it. And that's the reality for small business owners across the country. And that's actually a good thing. We want people to have that investment into their communities, into the economy, into their country, so that they have those ties, so that they understand what it takes when we're talking about economic growth. And it's not just something that you hear as a soundbite on television, but you really have a sense of how to make payroll and how hard it can be and the challenges there, but also the fulfillment that comes from that, the joy in building things, being part of the future, building something that might even outlast yourself and create a legacy in this country. I think we need to start making heroes out of entrepreneurs and telling those stories and encouraging people to go out there, roll up their sleeves and do it. That's the only way that we're going to turn our country around. If we don't want to be this sort of silo that is struggling next to our American neighbor, and look, so much of the good talent from Canada ends up going to the United States. We have to stop that. We have to recruit people back, get people home, encouraging them to have the adventure of their lifetime here in Canada, building their own family, building a community, building a business. I think that we really need to have that cultural shift. And I'm excited about the opportunity that we might have to tell those stories and to get people excited about that.
Okay, David, Candice has put out a big, bold idea. What would be your big, bold idea if
Okay.
Mark Carney calls you up and says, I need your advice, or maybe Pierre Poilievre does?
Well, look, I think I love what Candice just said. I think that's absolutely right. We need to create an opportunity society again. I think that Canada has lost its way by creating a nanny state culture that is running from crisis to crisis, defining anything that happens externally as the new crisis, and then finding government money printing and debt and an obese bureaucracy is the solution that they offer. And that's not healthy as a society. It hasn't worked. Canada is the most wealthy per capita society in the planet, bar none, if you take just the raw resource wealth that we have and the capability that we have. And it's been turned into a vassal economic colony of the United States by this misguided climate and economic policy of the Liberal Party. And I think that the opportunity that's ahead of us in confronting the Trump tariffs has 3 big parts. I think one is there's an enormous security angle to what's going on right now. And I think that our participation in the world in global affairs isn't just our economic trade opportunity to go beyond the United States into Europe and Asia. I think it's also that we become real partners in NATO. I think it's that we step up to the plate in NORAD and in some of these emerging, security issues like AUKUS. I think this is going to become an important part of solving the problem with the Trump administration, is that we quit being deadbeats and freeloading on the American taxpayer for our military and sort of global security. I think the second thing is there's going to be emerging opportunity with the U.S. on things like critical minerals, deepening our ties on a bunch of fronts, from data centers and other things that are sort of dual use and have a security element to it. And the third thing is there's going to be enormous pressure on Canada to catch up on taxes, red tape, regulation, and reversing the obese nanny state structure. And that's going to be good for us.
Okay, well, listen, thank you both for your big ideas and your thoughts on these important issues in Canada. I appreciate your time today.
Great to be here. Thanks,
Thanks a
Colin.
lot.